Hi, and welcome to Filmmakers Compass Podcast, a show where we talk about movies and well, more movies. I'm D-Man, joined by CP. And CP, I know you're feeling a little under the weather, but your voice sounded fantastic in pre-production.
Oh, well, thank you for the compliment, D-Man. I always appreciate that.
Well, I
try
love
very hard
for
these fans. Very hard.
I listen to this show for your beautiful voice.
Oh,
it's hard to listen to yourself, I think. It's always awkward.
I will tell you, Drucker used to do that, but apparently now he is he's a turncoat and he's betraying me. So guess he's listening for you.
Thanks, Drucker. That makes me really excited. No one's ever told me I have a beautiful voice. But I do host a lot of podcast episodes, so hopefully it's not so bad. But on that note, CP, let's go ahead and jump into our shout outs this week. So first of all, I wanted to give a big thank you again to Danielle for inviting us to the Cosm. We had a great time and even a great time talking about it. So it was a lot of fun. And I know I didn't give you a shout out last week because we were reserving that for the podcast segment, but I wanted to make sure, just said thank you and had a blast. So next up, Mikey jumps in and says, one battle after another, 11 out of 10, insanely good. Now, CP, would you give one battle after another an 11?
Absolutely not.
I actually thought it was pretty good. I'd probably go as high as, a 9. I thought most of the movie worked and it was memorable in all the right ways. It was funny. I was entertained. I really liked it.
For a movie to be an 11, the rewatchability has to be through the roof.
I will totally rewatch that. I might even go see it again in theaters.
Okay, that's fine. And you might, and you should. You have A-list. But are you going to rewatch this at like Star Wars level? At Lord of the Rings level?
Yeah. No.
So it's not an 11.
Just right, I said 9, which maybe is okay for me. And Mikey, I know you love The Dark Knight, and I know that you love a lot of different comic book movies. So I'd be curious what your rewatchable comment would be on that. Does this meet the Dark Knight level? So we'll see. CP, I have some bad news. Word from many of my friends is that they are not looking forward to Tron Ares. I'm not going to name drop anybody. Maybe if they have comments about the film once they've actually seen it. Some people are worried about the Jared Leto curse. And overall, the overall weak Tron media property. They were describing it to me as like Tron gets elevated for this push that it had in special effects and the Daft Punk score, but generally speaking, like none of the movies are really that good.
Well, it's also weird in the sense that, the first sequel to Tron Legacy, came like 25 years later. And the ironic thing is Tron Ares to Tron Legacy has been like 15 years, 13 years. It feels so long. At the time that Legacy came out, I actually think Disney really could have gotten away with driving that momentum and the kind of surprise success to some elements of that film. I know it didn't crush it in the box office, but I think there were people that were like, oh yeah, this is kind of interesting. The music's cool. The visual effects are pushing something. And they could have really crafted a trilogy around that.
They did not.
But they waited so long, it feels weird to me.
Yeah, they did get a ride out of it at like, I don't know, somewhere in Asia and now Walt Disney World. There's a Tron roller coaster, which I don't know if you saw, was pretty neat. When they launched the ride at Disney World, at least, it ran on a track that basically looked like Tron Legacy, where it was all blue. But for Tron Ares, they rethemed the roller coaster, and now it turns red like it's being taken over.
That's kind of cool. But I think Disney itself must have some concerns, right? Because we've talked about the totally lackluster marketing efforts from them. Comic-Con, right?
Yeah, they did.
Such an afterthought promoting this film, it feels like.
Yeah, they did have a panel at Comic-Con. Obviously, I wasn't there this year, but I did. I think when I was planning on trying to go, I was hoping that I could make the Tron Ares panel. And it does seem like, at least on social media right now, that they're going all out for the premiere. They had it at the IMAX theater, at the Grauman's Chinese Theater in Hollywood, and then had Nine Inch Nails perform a live concert on Hollywood Boulevard after the premiere ended.
That was actually cool. I saw the video. That looked like a great time.
So I mean, it sounds like at least on that level, they're enjoying the launch process. It's like a roller coaster pun. Um, but yeah, the movie's dropping this week. Everybody that is listening right now, if you get a chance to go see it, let us know your thoughts because we'll probably talk about it. I think we're both planning on going, right, CP?
Yep, that's my plan.
So yeah, and so far, I mean, from the trailers and stuff, the first trailer I was not wowed, and the second trailer I actually did sort of get into it. I thought the idea of bringing up AI and sort of meeting the moment we're in with all this big tech stuff, I thought it could be relevant. So I've steered clear of reviews, but hopefully it can deliver something intriguing and fun.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, I have another shout out. This one goes out to the Cinematic Fanatics chat. And I just wanted to say I'm really excited because CP, we booked tickets to go see Back to the Future on October 30th at the Puente Hills Mall.
What? Dude.
That's where they filmed the Twin Pines Mall and the Lone Pine Mall scenes in Back to the Future. We're going to go see it on the big screen at the theater where they shot the movie.
That's pretty insane. That's
So
cool.
I don't know. I have not heard, and I would be so disappointed if that theater doesn't do anything special for their individual showing because that's nuts. And they do have Back to the Future groups in LA that have gone to the Puente Hills Mall for various anniversaries and different things. So I'm hoping there's a little something special. Like when we went to go see the 24-hour Star Wars marathon, I felt like that theater went all out to do something really special for the fans. I hope. I don't know, but we'll see.
Dude, that's awesome.
So, and then my final shout outs for today, I just wanted to say congrats to Natalie and Alex. You know why. And finally, happy birthday, Terry. Hope you had a fantastic birthday, and I was glad that I got to celebrate with you. So, all right, CP, that does it for our shout outs this week. I'm going to send it over to you now for our box office breakdown.
All right. Box office breakdown. D-Man, thank you for tossing it over here. So, we talked about it last week. Number 5 in the box office, previously number 4, The Conjuring Last Rites.
Still
Man,
making money.
still making money. So, it has made almost $500 million in the box office.
I would love to take the bet with somebody that would say we will never get a Conjuring sequel. I I would bet on that. I'd be like, yeah, we're gonna get one. 100% we're getting one.
Right. So number 4 in the box office, previously number 2, this was the movie that you and I had no idea what the heck it was, and that's Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie, apparently based on an animated cartoon. Um,
Respect.
Weird that they decided to drop it in October, but hey, it's made about $33 million so far, which I don't
I
know
mean,
if it's really good or if just the rest of the box office was that disappointing.
I'm assuming it's pretty good. Honestly, it's a kids movie. That 33 doesn't sound horrible.
So, this is an interesting one from my perspective.
Okay.
Did you see this movie, The Smashing Machine?
I did not, although I think I will get to the theater to check it out. I heard, unfortunately, for The Rock, who has been basically box office gold in his big budget action blockbusters. I've heard that this was a bit of a letdown, and especially considering the awards buzz that it was generating upon its premiere.
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't know if it's true. I heard it only made like 6 million.
Yeah,
Um,
it did, which shocks me.
Yeah, I mean, because The Rock is a draw. He has a built-in audience that he brings with him from WWE, but even just as a celebrity, because he's transcended just wrestling, you would think that he would garner more eyeballs and butts in seats at the theater, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be the case. Here's what I have heard, CP, and maybe you can, confirm this, but I've heard The Rock's performance is incredible, but I've heard the movie is only okay.
Interesting. I mean, I could kind of see it based on the trailer. It's kind of an interesting like the the movie suggests that, right? That it's really a movie for an actor to showcase their acting talent.
Yeah.
Um, it seems very drama driven about his life, and I think it's also weird in the sense that though it's a biopic, it's also not like a this is a movie about Bob Dylan or Johnny Cash or someone who, is such a universal celebrity that everybody wants to go and see it. So I think that's kind of an interesting, you know.
I do agree with you. I think I'm guessing the success of A24's the Iron what was it, the Iron Claw
Yeah. Yeah.
is really what probably got this greenlit. Was you think about, the brothers in that space. I don't know that outside of like the wrestling community they were all that known, but the movie performed incredibly, incredibly well. And I bet this
A
was an
lot of
opportunity.
superstar cast, this 80s wrestling nostalgia.
Yeah, like so, the I think it was the Von Erich brothers. And
Yeah.
I think in this case, they were probably like, this guy has name recognition within the community. If we can get a star of the Rock's caliber attached to it, and we can kind of give it this awards push, I bet it could be, another
Yep.
example of a profitable movie. It didn't turn out that way. And I don't know if I would fully blame it simply on that guy not being as mainstream as, say, Johnny Cash. It may just be that the movie didn't itself have it didn't have enough steam for word of mouth,
Yeah.
where I think the Iron Claw did. I
Yeah.
think people started talking about it. It was like, oh my God, have you seen this movie? It's crazy because it's based on a true story and all these people die. And like, I don't know, that little element to the film might have been missing.
Fair enough. I think that's a very good point you just made there. So, number 2, Mikey's all-time new favorite movie, One Battle After Another.
Damn, it's already at two, huh?
Yeah.
It's a little disappointing.
Well, considering that it was made for about $175 million, PTA's most expensive movie, the worldwide box return has been 105 million, which bodes well. It is
It's a little light.
ticking up in profitability. And unfortunately, PTA has the same problem that Martin Scorsese is notorious for, which is they make great films, garner a lot of awards. They don't always turn a profit in the immediate box office.
True. And I think one of the things with one battle after another that's really unique, and we kind of hinted at this last week, but I mean, because we're talking box office, I'm definitely going to bring it up right now, which is I don't know if it, even when it got greenlit, if the studio cared if it even made money. Like, I think it's one of the movies that they're like, we need movies like this, and we're going to greenlight it because we just want it to get made. And
Well,
sometimes you need that. Everything can't be driven by box office results. Sometimes you just got to let Steven Spielberg go make a movie. Sometimes you got to let, PTA
yeah.
go do his thing because guess
Yep.
what? Movies as a whole are better for it when we
Yep.
get some differing stuff. It just cannot all be driven by box office and analytics.
Yep.
So I'm going to applaud the studio because I don't think they ever thought they were going to make money. And that's just all upside if they do.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and that is something that we owe Warner Brothers a lot of credit for. Sony has really been the torchbearer for this over the last couple of years of saying, "Hey, we're going to take auteur filmmakers and we're going to let them put out this piece of content that they believe in, kind of in the name of cinema, not in the name of returns." And I think it's great. I mean, you
Yeah,
can't do that with everyone, but there's some people that you're like, trust them, they know what they're doing.
I agree. And I think, yeah, I think just for the sake of movies in general, whether it's getting people to go to the theater or watch something on streaming, it doesn't matter. Sometimes you just got to have these movies. You got to have people be experimental and try things that they probably won't work, but we got to take risks and keep pushing and keep going. And yeah, I think it was one of those movies. And to that, hopefully it breaks even, but we'll see.
I agree. So, number 1 in the box office. Any inclination of what this may be, D-Man?
I have no idea.
Taylor Swift, the official release party of a showgirl.
Just kidding. I knew it was Taylor Swift. Of course it was.
Yep.
Now, are
$50
you going to
million.
see this one? Are you going to see this one in theater?
Well, for one, I missed it.
Oh, it was only a limited release?
I think it was only for the weekend. So
Wow. So it coincided with the launch of her album, but it's not having a full theatrical run.
I don't think so. The distributor's AMC. It's an AMC limited event. Um,
Okay.
but however, this is not like
The
the
Eras
Eras
tour.
tour, where the Eras tour was they pumped in a ton of money crafting, this really kind of impressive visual cinematic experience of a concert. This is music videos along with some footage that people have actually already seen, interview footage of her doing some iHeartRadio interviews.
Sure.
It's all kind of combined together. So I actually know some super hardcore Swifties
Ah, I bet you do.
that were a little disappointed that they're like, well, I mean, yeah, we got to see it in the theater. Yeah, it's a sing along and you're encouraged to sing, but they're like, but we've already seen some of this stuff out there. So,
Well, so in addition to that, I think one, this is a new album launch. So as far as sing along, I don't even know, other than maybe like a couple choruses, if people even know the songs yet because they're so fresh. And two, like you said, because this is an album launch, she hasn't gone and done a world tour, and they don't have concert footage of her
yeah,
performing these songs yet. So yes, a bunch of the footage probably has been available, whether it was leaked intentionally or people were able to get their hands on it because Swifties,
they're a pretty
they
crafty bunch.
they are, but honestly, they respect Taylor so much that I don't think they would violate. Like if she said don't release it, I feel like they wouldn't.
Right.
Like they love her so much that if she, yeah, was like, guys, I know you have this amazing footage, but please don't put it out. They'd be like, oh my God, Taylor, whatever you want.
Yeah, right. It's insane.
It's pretty nuts. I mean, she does print money though, which is crazy. I heard some other stuff about the album, but this is a movie podcast, CP, so I don't want to talk Taylor Swift for too long.
You don't want to talk the album?
I,
I mean,
I haven't listened.
I already ordered mine on vinyl, so we can talk about all you want.
No, I just wanted to see if you saw the movie in theaters. I was hoping you might have, just because I know you loved the Eras tour.
I mean, I love Taylor Swift and I love the Eras tour. I did not see it because I was home dying in bed.
If they do another Eras tour style like concert movie for Taylor Swift in this new album, what is it? Showtime or
Diary of a Showgirl?
yeah, Diary of a Showgirl. Maybe you can go see it at the Cosm.
Absolutely. Are you kidding? I'll buy my tickets now for it. I'll literally just call them up and be like, hey, if this happens, like just reserve my $85 so I can get premium seating.
My sister is a Swifty. I'll see if she wants to come out and go to Cosm with us.
Well, yes, you should invite her because I don't know that you'll enjoy it. But with your sister and me, you might be like, well, at least I know people who are going.
Yeah, it could be fun. It's like going, it's like being a fan of sports ball. Maybe you don't like sports, but you get invited to go to a game. It's like if you go with the right people, you'll still have fun at the game, even if you don't care about the game.
Very true, dude. Very true.
So, and who knows, maybe I'll come out of it with more Taylor Swift merch than I ever thought I'd have, and I'd become a Swifty.
Dude, I think everybody is rooting for that D man.
I don't think it's going to happen. Well, CP, thank you again for box office breakdown. That was fantastic. And congrats to Taylor Swift on taking the top spot. But it is time to jump into our main topic this week, which is actually kind of exciting because we have a little bit of a lead in here that's unassociated with our discussion today, but we are leading into a potential future episode. And that is the release and completion of the first season of Alien Earth.
Oh my gosh. I love Alien Earth so much.
Well, I'm going to be watching it now that it's completed, and hopefully we'll be able to have a much more in-depth conversation about Alien Earth specifically and even the Alien franchise as a whole. But today, we're going to go back to its roots. We are going to be talking about the 1979 classic by Ridley Scott, Alien.
Oh my gosh.
And
now,
this is
D-Man, you know how long I've wanted to talk about this movie on this podcast. So I'm thrilled that we're finally here. This is our first horror episode of 2025.
Yeah,
So
we're
getting ready for Halloween. If you have not watched it in a while, this is a perfect horror movie to revisit.
we actually did both rewatch the movie, even though funnily enough, I rewatched it like what, like a month ago.
Yeah,
I just for fun, like not for podcast homework or anything. I was like, oh, I just put on Alien, and I was like, CP. It was like so cool to see it again. It's been a minute, and then we decided we were going to talk about it because of Alien Earth. So I was like, I'm going to watch it again.
I know, dude.
Let's go. So
So I
yeah,
think the
go ahead.
first thing I want to bring up is this. Ridley Scott, Sir Ridley Scott, is on record saying that before he made this movie, he never had any interest in making a science fiction film. And that just blows my mind because you look at someone like George Lucas, on the other hand,
Yes,
and Lucas was very much influenced by things like Buck Rogers and all the stuff from when he was a
Flash
kid.
Gordon.
Yeah, right. Like the adventure aspect of going out into the universe. And Ridley Scott looked at it and was always like, nope, this genre is incredibly uninteresting. And he said that until he went and saw 2001 A Space Odyssey on the
Okay.
big screen in 70 millimeter, he was like, there's actually a lot that you can do here with the right pacing, the right cinematography, and the right directing. And that's what opened him up to the possibility of even taking on the script Alien. So I think that that is just so profound when we look at the fact that this is the guy who gave us the Alien franchise, which is now 7 movies,
Mm-hmm.
and Blade Runner, two of the most influential and iconic science fiction movies responsible for shaping the direction of the genre for the next 40 years.
That is really impressive when you think about it. And it's interesting that you mentioned 2001 A Space Odyssey, because that movie obviously was an inspiration for a lot of people, whether it was special effects artists, whether it was sci-fi fans, whether it was even George Lucas,
Yep.
and him sort of seeing, I know he has a interview somewhere where he talks about, he's like, I love 2001, but I wanted more speed. He was like, I was a fan of racing, and
Yeah.
I wanted this sense of uh, like scale and speed that here everything was so slow moving, even if it looked incredible.
Yeah.
And you could tell that Alien sort of adopts that 2001 style of space and special effects versus
Yep.
Star Wars. But I wanted to bring up, CP, that when you talk about Ridley Scott seeing 2001 A Space Odyssey and seeing the potential for that genre, it took me back to our episode of the podcast where we talked about the movie Forbidden Planet.
Yes.
And I remember watching that episode or that movie for the podcast and seeing all the potential right there in that movie for what would become, a very popular movie genre, science fiction.
Yeah.
I felt like Forbidden Planet laid a lot of the groundwork. And it's interesting that it took all the way to 2001 for Ridley Scott to get there, because obviously I didn't watch it in its time. This is me looking backwards and connecting the dots, right? Ridley Scott at 2001 is looking forward and seeing the potential.
Yeah.
I saw how it all worked out, but it's interesting because I'm like, that's really neat, and it's kind of cool that 2001 had that level of impact on our future filmmakers.
Well, and it's funny that you say that because Dan O'Bannon, the writer of the original Alien film, credits Forbidden Planet as one of his inspirations with writing Alien
No way, that's awesome.
because he was always attracted to the fact that the beginning of Forbidden Planet, which when you think about it this way, is very similar to the beginning of Alien, right?
Yeah.
Spacecraft in space being warned not to land on the planet, them going down, and some mysterious creature killing off all the members of the crew, which is exactly what Alien is in many ways.
Now that you say that, I just want to say I nailed it. That
Oh, 100%. 100%.
All right, that makes more sense now, because yeah, I totally got that vibe. Although I didn't necessarily connect the dots that literally it's the story is sort of like an updated Forbidden Planet, but it reminded me of that. It definitely, my mind went back to that episode because
Well, yeah, and I mean, and obviously, right in Alien, when they decode the beacon, they realize it's a warning far once they've already entered landed and entered the facility. Right at first, they assume that it's a distress beacon, and
one of the
yeah,
things with Alien that stood out to me too is when they arrive on the planet. we're talking about 2001 or even Forbidden Planet, the harshness of the world that's being created by the writers and Ridley Scott here, the designers, they don't end up on a planet like Naboo from Star Wars, this beautiful, lush, green ecosystem filled with all different types of life. It's this grayed out, almost blue hued dust and rocks blowing everywhere. Going out seems like every time you step outside, you might die.
Yep.
They have to wear spacesuits. They're the aliens, they're not Ewoks.
Yeah.
Right? They're
Yeah.
slimy and in eggs, and the actual alien, the xenomorph, is very intimidating and scary looking. It's almost like you think closer to a deep dive into our own ocean and running into creatures down there. It doesn't seem like they're going to be friendly
Yeah.
and opening to hey, welcome to our world. What are you doing here? Get out or I will kill you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in this movie, then, it does feel a bit like that's the overall tone. We all sort of know where this is going. There's no sleight of hand here. The movie is presenting itself as like this alien will be killing everybody.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Totally. Totally.
And it works really well. I think there's a few things that came to mind, which is one, the way the alien actually takes control of, I believe it's the character Kane.
Yes, Kane
Is
is the one who on the planet gets attacked with the face hugger, where it breaks through his suit.
I'm not gonna lie, we got some weird shit going on here, CP. Like a face hugger, it's borderline like rape. I don't even know. It like the alien like literally just attaches itself to somebody's face, which is a horrific image and
Yep.
one that has been replicated and everybody sort of associates with Alien, but horrible. And it impregnates a man,
I
which
know.
is even crazier when you have things like the AI system on the Nostromo being called Mother. And then you think of like bees, but in this case you have aliens. It's sort of the queen. You have a strong female lead. There's all kinds of thematic themes happening here that it's pretty nuts when you get into it.
Okay, so let's try and like package that down into a meaningful conversation here. Sort of D-Man just brain barfing everything he noticed
Yeah,
during Alien, which really, not to put words in your mouth, but as you would describe as a bunch of crazy shit.
that's exactly what I said. So you're right on.
um, so the first thing, obviously, like it is really interesting. The whole the whole face hugger. I immediately go back to the head crabs from the world of video games, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen this played out multiple times in different ideations. And what I think is always fascinating is, again, connecting this back to the theme of the film. The whole movie rests on the fact that there is a biocontamination protocol that they violate, and because in their haste and their hubris they don't respect the process, it leads to the alien infectation of the entire ship.
Well, I do like, though, that Ripley herself adheres to that quarantine protocol. So
Yep.
she literally vehemently says no,
Yeah.
rejects opening the door and allowing well, at this point, I think they are assuming it's an alien, but like some sort of foreign life, a contaminant onto the ship.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
explicitly forbids it. But the plot, this is the first hint. I believe it's Ash that opens the door,
Yep.
the scientist
Yep.
amongst the crew,
Yep.
and he decides to open the door. Now, we could safely assume at this point that Ash is both being heroic and just trying to save his crew members, as well
Yep.
as curious because
Yep.
he's a scientist to see what that life might be. There's nothing yet totally nefarious, but it is our first hint that there could be underlying trouble.
Yep.
And he doesn't even consult Ripley. He just does it.
Yep.
So, which we find out later, he has a directive to do just that.
True.
But okay, going back to the face hugger. Uh, just a horrible image. They have Kane laid out in the med bay or the science room or wherever he is, and this thing's just on him. You don't know what it is, and then it like spews out some acid, which is pretty nuts.
Yeah, and they cut it, and right when they try to biopsy it, and it ends up burning, and they're afraid it's going to burn all the way through the whole of the ship because it doesn't stop, which is obviously a huge problem when you're in outer space.
Yes. And it was actually pretty cool because I liked the visual image of them going down floors to see like if it ever stops or if it's going to burn
Yeah,
through the entire hull of the ship,
yeah,
which for science fiction is really cool.
yep.
Because you're like, I mean, we
Great
assume,
sense of a source of tension.
right? Like, we know our sort of earth elements and everything, but we're in science fiction here. It could go through the whole thing,
Yeah.
pretty cool.
I also think it's a great visual way to depict that this is not something that as humans we've encountered before, right?
Yeah.
Acid blood. How do you start to think about how are you going to deal with this?
It's also a
Right.
little foreshadowing
Yeah.
to the idea of the aliens sort of going through the different levels of the ship.
Yep.
So it works really well that like, they're like, oh wow, this is really gonna our ship's not going to save us, is basically what I got from that vibe. Before we move on though, while we're talking about the face huggers, I wanted to ask you, okay, they they arrive down on this planet, and three of them go out on a little mission. They find this foreign ship, and inside of it, or is it a ship or is it a building? I don't know.
I don't think that we really know. It's
I
not
couldn't
totally
tell.
clear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if it was like a spaceship or what it was. But anyway, there's a bunch of eggs in there. I wanted to ask you because I don't know. This is just what's running through my head while I'm watching the movie. Are there ever xenomorphs like on this planet, or do they just stay in egg form, waiting to like take over another symbiotic life? You know what I mean? Like, do they ever mature out of those eggs, or do they need a host in order to become a xenomorph?
Based on the lore that's created in this movie, I think they need a host. I mean, we do
Okay.
see some of the structures, like there's that big gun,
Yeah.
right? When they
That's what
first,
I don't know.
but I don't get the impression that there's like a bunch of xenomorphs running around that planet.
Right. And then the other thing too is that the actual being that comes out of the egg, the face hugger, dies upon essentially impregnating a human host.
Yeah, right.
So I got the sense that that itself, the face hugger, never evolves into becoming a xenomorph. It's like that exists
That's the
simply
transmission
yeah,
method.
to
Yeah,
attach to a host.
yeah, that's the vibe I get.
Now, I'm not familiar enough with the Alien franchise, so maybe that's simply answered right away at the beginning of the next one. I'd have to rewatch. I've seen like three of them. I think I saw the original three. I don't think I saw like Prometheus. I didn't see Romulus. I'll have to check those out.
Oh, lots to check out. But yeah, to my knowledge, I think it's always kind of that the eggs are there. The face huggers are what's used to transmit the baby alien seeds that then need a host to spread.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's definitely really creepy because the movie is indulging in sort of like body horror and like body violation. And again, I mean, earlier I used the word rape to describe it because it's pretty nuts what actually happens. But you also think of things like, a virus or a disease.
Yeah.
This idea that you're losing your bodily autonomy. So, but this is physical autonomy because one of the other things that, I was reading some interviews with Ridley Scott and some different stuff is that they also viewed the Nostromo, the ship that they're on, as sort of a metaphor for the human mind in crisis, which I
Oh,
thought
okay.
was
That's interesting.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, you sort of have your mission and you're doing your stuff, and slowly that breaks down and it seeds to terror and really human nature,
Yeah.
which I thought was cool. So you have like this sort of physical element to it, which is like this body violation where they're like, nope, the alien itself needs a human host. It occupies your body in order to evolve.
Yep.
And then the ship itself becomes this metaphor for the breakdown of the human mind. So you're like, this alien is here to terrorize humanity 100%.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
So
that's the natural horror elements of this film, right? And I think, there was a lot of complaints at the time that the movie came out. And one of the things audience loved, and one of the things that the distributors and the studios hated was the graphic nature of the movie.
yeah, well, I mean, there's the chest exploding scene when they're all eating dinner. So Kane, I don't know if the face hugger just ends up dying or
Yeah,
whatever
it
happens,
dies,
but
and everyone thinks he's fine. And I think that's again what part of the, when we're
the
peeling back what makes this movie so scary, the fact that everyone's like, well, I guess you're fine now.
yeah,
And he's
like
like,
the
I'm fine. I feel
reassurance.
great. Let's go eat some grub.
And then he just starts like convulsing on the table while blood spurts out of his chest, and then
Oh
this
my
little alien
gosh.
pops out. Obviously, Kane's dead, and now you have this little alien running around on the ship, which I don't know. It was really cool, but as a special effect, I thought the chest bursting scene held up really, really well. The
It's
face hugger held up really, really well. The only thing, there were a couple shots maybe of the alien where it did feel a little limited in what they could do
with
with.
the puppetry at the time.
Yeah, that to me was something that didn't necessarily hold up as well, but because they used shots of the alien sparingly, sort of similar to what Steven Spielberg does with the shark in Jaws, I think the movie holds up really well, despite sort of knowing there's some puppetry going on here.
Well, and so let's talk about the chest burst scene because I think that that is so iconic alien. And anytime there's a chest burst, it's immediately compared to like in Alien, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Um, and I think the sci-fi genre itself, as it's evolved, it's, if there's an alien or something that comes out of people, it's always compared to like in Alien, right?
Yep.
Um, so the first thing that I think is really great is obviously it's done really well. The puppetry around the bursting scene, the makeup is done really, really well. But I think the other thing that makes this scene so powerful, and we have to credit Ridley Scott here as a director, is the reaction of the cast. So he told
Mm.
everyone, okay, like obviously, the actor who plays Kane is repositioned with the fake body out on the table so that they can do the burst scene. Everybody knew it was coming. He did not tell them being the cast that it was going to be spewing blood and guts all
Oh, that's
around
awesome.
them. So, when the actress playing Lambert is freaking out, she's actually genuinely freaking out because she's being sprayed with a bunch of stuff she wasn't expecting to be sprayed with.
That's awesome. I mean, it's incredible because yeah, like that scene is sold so well. It's iconic in all the right ways. And like you said, that's actually one of the special effects in the film that I think holds up remarkably, remarkably well.
And the other thing they do well is they kind of pace it out, right? Like we knew that there's something weird with Kane, how suddenly this face hugger just falls off and dies. And then it's kind of like what's going on with him? Is he choking? Is he and then as it gets prolonged long enough when we start seeing what's going on in his chest, we're like, this is not cool. Like run, run, run. And they're all just sort of standing around watching to see what happens. And you're like, nope,
I
bad
also
news, guys.
noticed in that scene at one point, I think is there a character named Parker?
Yeah, Parker's
Yeah.
the mechanic.
I think when it came out of the chest, he was going to hit it with something, and Ash stops him, says,
Yep.
don't touch it. Now,
Yep.
granted, again, nothing nefarious at first glance because they have no idea that this little alien thing popping out of this guy's chest is going to become the full scale xenomorph that's going to hunt them all down across the ship. But it also still does suggest that he was like, don't kill it
Yeah. Yeah.
because maybe we could study it, or maybe I have, a different directive than the rest of you.
Yep. Absolutely. Which is foretelling and foreboding at the same time.
Yeah, because, all right, let's get into it. So there's a directive that the crew is following. And when they go into the main sort of computer room to speak to Mother, which is, I don't know if that's an AI
That's the
system.
ship's AI. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an AI system. They're constantly being denied access. I forget the actual phrase that it uses, but it's like cannot compute or something.
Yeah.
And essentially is just cutting them off from what they're really doing. And they sort of know there's something odd going on, but they're not sure what's happening. And apparently, again, kind of like, execute Order 66 in
Yeah.
Star Wars Revenge of the Sith, there's this Directive 937, which basically is the directive that Ash is following on behalf of Mother and their corporate overlords. He's literally the corporate machine. Uh, he
Yeah.
he's basically following a directive that they were supposed to go down, retrieve uh, the alien body, and bring it back. Crew is dispensable,
Yep.
expendable. Sorry, not dispensable. The crew
Yep.
is expendable. So
Yep.
the crew is operating under a different directive and assuming that their safety is of the highest priority.
Yep.
It is not. And it's revealed in this moment when they find Directive 937 that Ash is, in fact, a robot. He is a synthetic being, and that he does not have their best interests at heart at all. That they've been lied to. In fact, to the degree that in order to protect that directive, Ash decides that he needs to kill Ripley.
Yep.
So, which leads to another sort of great special effect. I don't know if the transition was the best, but Parker shows up and beats this guy to death, to Ash, to the degree that his head comes off his robotic body. And then they have another effect where, like, they wake up the head and it's talking on the ground.
Yeah.
And the effect looks great. I just don't know if the transition to the like fake stage head to the real head, it was kind of like a little
There's like
jumpy.
a little jump in the cut where you're like, okay, you can see where it's now like repositioned perfectly so the actor can pop his head through
Yeah,
the
stick
floor.
his head
Yeah.
through a hole under the ground and we can
Yeah.
film him, speak. But I did think it worked really well. It's kind of a cool effect. But I like the idea here of bringing AI into the conversation because up to this point, Mother and they don't know Ash, but we know now Ash is, a synthetic AI robot. And to help the crew, right? It seems like the job of the AI is there as support and to be on their side. But like AI tends to be across most science fiction, it can be pretty nefarious.
Yeah.
And in this
Yeah.
case, it is. I don't know if the AI itself and Mother are looking to take advantage of whatever aliens or xenomorphs have to offer, but it's pretty nuts that the AI turns on the humans because who saw that coming?
Well, Ripley saw that coming, right? She's skeptical from Ash from the very beginning and talks to Dallas many times about, hey, we don't really know this guy. Can you trust him? Can you trust him? Which again is alluding to the fact that there's something more in the way that he behaves and he interacts with the crew and the fact that he defies orders. So we are kind of constantly warned about it. I imagine at the time, the reveal that he was a synthetic was a whole like, whoa, because it is interesting, right? Like the antagonist of Alien is the alien, but the
Right.
villain is Ash.
Yeah, it's literally this sort of special order 937, this directive to disregard human life in favor of science and exploration. But,
Yep.
there's a corporation out there. It's not really mentioned other than Mother, but essentially profit. Like there's got
Yeah.
to be something in it for us.
Yeah.
And, you know, crew and human life be damned.
Yeah.
So it works.
A whole bunch of bioethics, to be explored here thematically, and the way they present it is, it's a great source of conflict.
And it works really well because I think that reveal is sort of the climax of the film. That's where the whole story sort of hinges, is on finding out that special order.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that works really well. But on the flip side, you mentioned at the top of the episode that this is a little bit of a horror genre discussion. So what did you think about the alien on the Nostromo, hunting down each of the crew members one by one?
So I think there's a couple things that jump out to my mind. First of all, the alien constantly evolves through the film, right?
Mm-hmm.
At first with the face hugger, Then we have the little alien embryo that pops out of the chest and runs away with the, that's small. And
Yeah.
then we get the xenomorph in full form that we expect. But the crew constantly has to keep evolving their approach to the situation after they've
Yeah.
witnessed the evolution of the alien. So I think that that's a great technique because just when we the audience and when the crew themselves think they have an idea on how to deal with things, it evolves again.
Yeah. Like
Two,
when it's small and they're trying to catch it, they're like, oh, let's just use a net,
yeah, right.
and you're like, oh, that is not going to work.
At first they're like, let's just seal off the med bay, and then if the thing gets loose, but then it does gets loose, and then they don't know what happens to it, right?
Yep.
So I think that that's brilliant. The second thing is obviously most of the film takes place on the Nostromo. There is a claustrophobic element, but
That's
on
true.
top of that, despite the fact that they're constantly ordered to work in pairs, it is a very they play on that primordial fear of being alone. And Ridley Scott does a great job. The
Hmm.
ship's dark, it's dungy. On top of it, it's very grimy.
Yeah.
Right, there's the sequence where Brett goes into the water cooler, where we actually see the xenomorph in its full form the first time.
It's
Like
pretty epic.
there's chains and there's water, and it's kind of there's just a murkiness to everything that clouds your senses, which probably works because the puppetry is limited. But I think playing with lights, playing with shadows, playing with all these other elements obstructing our view, I think adds a good sense of fear to this unknown creature.
I also like the cinematography in a lot of these scenes when he's following the crew around the ship, where it's like the way it's framed, you can see the background. And so often you're sort of thinking to yourself, like, are we going to see the alien in the background? And like that does come to pass in a minimal sense. There's like a couple shots where that happens, but generally, no. It's just this sense of
Dread.
claustrophobia, yeah, and dread on this ship that the alien could be anywhere at any time. And if you watch it again, CP, it's literally framed that way so that like there's gaps in space, like right here. So you see it almost looks like the camera's slightly off, but that
Yeah.
being slightly off makes us uncomfortable.
Yep.
It works really well. And then you're constantly, so the character's still positioned, right within the thirds of the frame, but because the camera's slightly off, we're looking around them within the frame, so they're using the whole frame. They're not directing us to the character's eyes.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, and for me, I think one of my very favorite sequences in the movie is when Dallas goes into the ventilation system to find this thing and kill it. I think the
Yeah.
way that this is told through the claustrophobia of him, kind of having to, he's carrying his torch, he's got the light, and he has to like crowd through the vents, and the rest of the team is telling him, "Oh, there's movement here. Wait, it stopped moving." And we are with him like, "Oh my gosh, where is this thing? What's it going to do? What's it going to do? What's it going to do?"
Yep.
And then it gets him. And I
Little
think that that is great.
Die Hard borrowed that scene later.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
One of my favorite in the movie. I think it's really done. It's really suspenseful, which I mean, I think 70s horror in many ways is much more of a slow burn than I think 80s horror, which kind of got to be a little more over the top graphic. And so it is kind of interesting. This movie in 79 is sort of a the transition from the slow burn psychological horror into the gore fest that the 80s have been known for. And we're watching the evolution of horror cinema as we watch this movie.
Yeah. And one of the things that's really unique um, is the genre shift that happens between Alien 1 and Aliens or Alien 2. And there's a lot going on there. Like one of the things that really was interesting to me when learning about this movie was why Ridley Scott did not direct Aliens. For as successful as Alien was, and as well as it is regarded within its genre, they do two things with the sequel, which is they get a new director and they switch genres.
Oh yeah, right. Which I
So
think is a very bold choice.
Well, and here's something that was interesting to me when I was just thinking about it is like I don't think people realize, but at this time, 1979, only the original Star Wars has come out. Empire Strikes Back hasn't come out.
True.
You have things like The Godfather and Godfather Part Two that were both directed by Francis Ford Coppola, and there were probably a couple other things, uh, what's his name, Sergio Leone and like the Dollars trilogy,
Yeah.
the spaghetti westerns, and there's a couple things where some directors were able to craft trilogies, but back then trilogies were not really like this thing the way we think of them today. Sequels in general weren't really what we think of them today.
I think
They
that's
were
a really good
often
point.
corporate greed. It was like, hey, I made my contribution. Like at that point, I don't even know if franchises were a thing. Like, has Jaws 2 even come out yet?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's so hard to wrap your head around and go back to that time because obviously we weren't even alive then. But like sequels just were not what we think they are, because it seems almost ridiculous that Ridley Scott wouldn't return to direct the sequel. But in his own interviews and some of the things that he said over the years, he's like, they ended up wanting to take the franchise in a different direction. And he was like, maybe I was a little bit difficult to work with on the first shoot. I don't know. But he's like, they didn't even ask them.
Yeah.
Like he didn't even get like an offer, and he's like, no, the offer was shit. Or like he's like, they didn't come tell me you're not gonna do it. He's like, they just never said anything and just moved on with it. But I think that's how it was. And you had mentioned in pre-production something about James Cameron sort of just claiming it.
Oh, well, what I read was that James Cameron, who wrote Aliens, the sequel to Alien, he put out this script. He sort of did a little bit of preliminary pre-production. He reached out to Sigourney, and kind of when he approached the producers of Alien, he's like, "Hey, I have all these pieces." They were sort of like, "Well, hey, great job. You got all this stuff. Run with it." Right? So I think he kind of implied, once he wrote the original script, led people to believe that he had the blessing of the owners to the
That's
IP,
funny.
and that's how he got everything that he did and cemented himself as the director. And hey, good for him for having a little bit of a grift on there.
Well, and one of the things that's fascinating, and this is really interesting, is the tonal and genre shift when you go to Aliens from Alien, which is you have like sci-fi horror to almost like action sci-fi. Um, Aliens ups the ante in all the ways. We get a brand new team, and they're much more militarized. And then you also get way more aliens.
Yeah. And
You
I think
know,
that's the big difference, right? There's one xenomorph in the first installment, which isn't even ever called a xenomorph, and then we get to the second one and they have a name and there's like 80 of them.
yeah. So like they're firing guns, and like in the first movie, they don't even really have guns. I think they just have flamethrowers.
Yeah.
Like it totally shifts the whole thing. But what's interesting to me is that I think Aliens is what solidified that franchise as being a staple of the sci-fi genre. And when
Yeah.
people think of Alien, I think they often think of Aliens, not necessarily the first one. Now, I don't want to take away anything from the first one, because I think when most fans of the genre rank the Alien movies, Alien, the first one's probably at the number one spot. But that's just not what people think of, right? Like, objectively, you could make a case that Empire Strikes Back is a better movie than Star Wars A New Hope. But like, no matter how good, or if you like Empire more, I mean, it will never take away from what Star Wars did for, film in general, but special effects and its place in film history. And I think
Yeah.
the same is sort of true for Alien, where yes, maybe like if people were to pick which one they want to watch, a lot of people probably prefer to put on Aliens,
Yeah.
but you can't take away from what the first one did and what it introduced.
No, I think you're absolutely right.
It just blows my mind that like even us, like growing up after the 80s, Spielberg got to make the Indiana Jones movies and Zemeckis, the Back to the Future movies. And there was this sense that after the 80s that like when you're creating like a franchise or even just a sequel at that point, because and this is where trilogies started to really become a thing. It's like obviously you would want to keep the same director and production team and act like, why wouldn't you just use the same people who made the first one so successful? But back in the day, that's just not how sequels were done.
Yeah, the only sequel I can really think of, other than The Godfather was probably Rocky and
Yeah.
Rocky 2 at the time. But yeah, other than that, like it wasn't, hey, this is an original world. We have to let the audience revisit this again.
Or even sequels in general, like they didn't carry a sense of narrative momentum from one to the next all that often. It was just like, you got another horror sequel where Jason's back, but
Yeah,
did it really connect to the first one? Not really. Jaws 2, you're like, some of the characters came back, but like, not really. You don't have to see Jaws to get what Jaws 2 is doing.
true.
To the
Very true.
extent that by Jaws 3, I don't even think they have any of the original cast. Like, they didn't even care. It didn't
Yeah.
even matter, and
Is that the one where they're in like the SeaWorld park?
yeah, it's pretty awesome, actually. I was like, way to go, Jaws. But this whole time, we thought Jaws was at Universal. It was at SeaWorld. But I don't know. It's just interesting because, I think when we were growing up, most people would say things like, the sequel's never as good as the original. And, it's not until later where we started to have these shared and connected universes, thanks Star Wars and episodes 1 through 6 and, the MCU, where we start to see a certain level of continuity across the properties where we're like, oh, wow, this is really cool. That's just not how it was.
No, definitely. So I think the other big thing we haven't talked about, I mean, we've alluded to it, but we haven't really talked about it in depth.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the incredible set design.
Amazing.
And I think Alien and Star Wars, now I'm the one tying Star Wars into this. Usually it's
Yes.
you.
Bam.
Alien and Star Wars are essential at doing two things in the sci-fi genre. For one, for one, they gave the future a past, right?
Yeah. Okay.
The Millennium Falcon is the same thing that's going on with the Nostromos. We're going around and we're seeing this kind of, weathered deck with stuff that leaks and stuff that creaks and stuff that doesn't work.
Yep. The
And
used universe.
yes, and up until then, space was very Apple, right? It's
Yeah.
sleek, it's clean. The other major takeaway is Ridley Scott through the Alien film and George Lucas through Star Wars both created the concept of the capital ship, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Big spaceships. Before then, it was kind of the Buck Rogers, you know,
Or flying saucer or
yeah,
something.
or stuff inspired by what they were actually doing with the space program, these little 3-man modules.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, that has been influential in the direction that sci-fi has evolved since then. But it really goes back to the way that they built this in the set, right? And a lot of that is to control the lighting, as you said, to control the shadows, to help conceal the alien. But I think the other thing is a lot of it goes back to Ridley Scott's creativity. He has stressed multiple times that he did not have the budget that he wanted to be able to build out the Nostromo, and more importantly, to build out the alien planet when they go down on the surface. And
Yeah.
even with all the models that they used, he said, hey, this wasn't Star Wars. I didn't have the model budget that Lucas did. So we could really make incredible models. And so, in fact, if you notice when they go to the alien structure on the planet, right?
Yeah.
We see it through a television screen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's done as though we're seeing it through what Ash is seeing as the crew goes up to it. But Ridley Scott has said, he said, hey, our models were not that good. So we figured if we shot them through a 16 millimeter camera and then we projected it onto a television screen, that gritty muddiness would add to the harshness of the alien planet that we were exploring. And I think that's really clever. So there's an element to this, which is how are we presenting this to the audience versus what are we actually building out, for the crew, for the
And
cast
it's
and crew.
really cool too because you think about Ridley Scott, and you mentioned earlier he has Alien here and Blade Runner a few years later, and the influence that those films had in multiple ways. Blade Runner influencing anime and science fiction and different things for really generations. And here you have Alien, there's a couple of shots. There's like a first person POV where Ripley's like running down some of the hallways and there's smoke coming out and flashing lights and all this stuff. You're like, this is clearly inspiration for current video game design.
Oh yeah, no, that's a really good point.
And even the uh claustrophobic hallways and sort of having to explore it almost feels like a level or something from a video game where it's like, oh, here's your mission, you got to go down into the air ducts and go you know kill the
Yeah,
alien. And
yeah,
you're like, wow, this really translated to obviously future films that adapt things like this. I mean, we're joking about Die Hard earlier, but video game design is nuts. They got to be inspired by a lot of what is going on here.
yeah. That's a really good point. I didn't,
So even horror, you think Resident Evil or like, sure, it's not as science fiction, it's a little bit more horror fantasy, but that claustrophobic hallway is a staple of video games with things jumping out at you and hiding in the shadows. And
Yep,
eventually they introduce surround sound in your headphones and you hear like pipes burst behind
yep.
you, and you're like, that's all right here, way ahead of its time. And I don't even know if we have the Atari yet. Like, clearly no Nintendo. So
Yeah,
like, this is where this is coming from, right
yeah,
here.
yeah. That's a really good point.
And then I don't know, something else I want to say. So like, obviously I love the design, everything they're doing here I think looks amazing and it holds up remarkably well. Because as you mentioned, we haven't really evolved yet into digital effects other than
Hmm.
maybe the explosion of the Nostromo
Yeah,
at the
maybe
end. That might have been digital.
that might have
Um,
been.
I know it's not the first digital effect, and it might not have been. It just came off that way. Could have been.
Yeah.
Um, this character didn't do anything wrong, but I really hate Jones the cat. Like, I hate how much they use the cat to get the characters to sort of do something where you're like, don't do it.
Yeah, yeah.
You
Like,
know,
go get
what
the cat, and then he's like, "Now I'm alone.
he's
Perfect
like
time to get
walking
eaten."
through that, what was it? What was the character's name? Dallas? Or who was it that goes to find the cat and he gets in the water?
Oh, that's Brett. Yeah,
Brett. Yeah, Brett goes, he's like, Jones. You're like, you don't think this is stupid? It's like the character in like, Halloween, like going to open the closet door. You're like, you idiot. Why are you doing this? And like Jones the cat, to me, even later, like Ripley's like, Jones, I need to get the cat. And sure, at the very end, she gets to hold the cat and is like, oh, I'm so happy. I'm not alone. I'm like, fuck that. Fuck
yeah.
that cat.
That cat kind of seems like an a-hole anyway.
Yeah, it's always hissing at them. And I get it. Like, there's a xenomorph running around in this ship and the cat thinks it's going to get eaten. But I'm like, let the cat be a distraction. Like, send the cat to run and let the xenomorph go chase that thing. What are they doing?
uh,
Now, to
yeah,
be fair, if it was a dog, I would have risked my life to save. But that
I
cat,
understand. You are definitely a dog person.
no, I'm just kidding. I mean, dog too. I'd be like, I always think of what is it, Independence Day, when she's like, "Boomer!" And he's like in the little tunnel and all the fires rushing at them, and the dog leaps through the door, and you're like, yes, the dog lived, even though you're like, that dog could have died.
Oh, D-man.
Okay, so the only other thing I did want to throw over to you, I just had to ask you, would you ever watch a James Gunn directed Alien
Oh
sequel?
my gosh. No, no, dude. The problem is this. I mean, the crazy thing about the Alien franchise, and I don't want in any way like anyone to think like that I'm saying James Gunn is a great filmmaker because he's not.
He
But
is.
the interesting thing is when we think about the Alien franchise, Alien number one, Ridley Scott, one of the best that there is. Aliens, the sequel, James Cameron, one of the best that there is. Alien 3, I don't think most people realize this, David Fincher.
No, come on. Are you serious?
Like, if I had to have like a one, two, three lineup of directors making
Is
a
Alien
film
3, is that
series,
Resurrection or
no, no, that's Alien 3. Alien
oh, okay.
4 is Resurrection. David Fincher, I'm like, I mean, I cannot stand Alien 3 because what Fincher's trying to do with horror is very different, I think, than what
Who directed Dune in the 80s?
David, David Lynch. I can't believe I spaced on that.
We
But
had the
yeah,
first
dude,
name too. We were that close.
how like when I think about that, I'm like, okay, and obviously each of them is doing something distinctly different in the film that they're making. I just don't think that, and no, like actually, if we remember, um, James Gunn he made Brightburn, which is a Superman inspired horror movie, and he made Slither, which is it's kind of like a
I
parody of
remember.
like 50s
I watched that
horror
with
movies.
Allison. Yeah, I remember Slither. Yeah, it's kind
But
of
I
weird.
feel like his version of an alien film would be like goofy and comedic, and I don't think that that would in any way do the franchise justice.
Well, all right. I mean, I just had to ask. I figured.
You want to bring up James Gunn every single episode of this show, don't you?
Well, I need to know your opinion. That's why we're here.
In fact, if James Gunn ever directs an alien movie, I am done as a fan. And you know, this is one of my favorite horror and sci-fi franchises. Done. I'll never watch another alien movie.
All right, so I have one final question for you. Ridley Scott did come back and return to the franchise. I mentioned earlier I have not seen those movies. Was that a welcome return? Because I feel like he has sort of come back, whether it's in a producer or director role, to some of the stuff he's done over the years that's considered iconic. And I was just curious if you think, he sort of revived it, or are you more excited for it now without maybe his major involvement?
So my opinion is it's a yes and a no. So he came back and he produced and he directed Prometheus and Alien Covenant. I do
Yeah.
not think that either of those were successful. I think that for him as a storyteller, he thought there were things that we needed to know as an audience, right? What are the
Okay.
origins of the xenomorph? What's this history of all this other stuff going on in space that we haven't really seen? I don't think as an audience that's what we wanted. I think what
Okay.
we wanted is
More
what he
aliens.
did as a producer, greenlighting the film Alien Romulus. I'm like, yeah, that's what we want. We get to
Okay.
explore a little bit more of this Weyland-Yutani world and the role of xenomorphs, but we're getting down to aliens chasing people on derelict space stations, which is exactly what I think audiences wanted.
Well, I'm gonna have to watch Alien Earth, and then we'll have to talk about it on the podcast. Maybe we'll even make a call out to Ivor because he seemed very excited for Alien Earth. So it might be fun to have him on to talk about it if he's interested at all. Ivor, there's your invitation. Let us know your thoughts. But CP, that actually does it for our episode this week. It was fun talking Alien and going back to the 70s and horror sci-fi. It was a blast.
Definitely
And
was.
let us know your thoughts. Be sure to continue the conversations. You can follow the podcast at filmmakerscompass.com, where we have a feed of all past episodes, as well as links to all of our social media accounts, which you can follow on Instagram at FilmCompPod or at FilmCompPodcast. And you can follow me at Big Kid D-Man.
And you can follow me at NDCal5. Thank you for hanging out and talking Alien with us. We will see you back here next week. But in the meantime, if you haven't, watch Alien Earth, because we're going to be talking about it in about 2 weeks. Keep watching movies.